Hearts in Atlantis by Stephen King. 1960. They had a stick sharpened at both ends. Low men in yellow coats. One, a boy and his mother, Bobby's birthday, the new rumor of time and strangers. Hello, Robert. Bobby looked up even more startled than he'd been when Carol Gerber raced out from behind the tree to put a birthday smackaroo on his cheek. It was the new man in the house. He was sitting on the top porch step and smoking a cigarette. He had exchanged his old scuffed shoes for a pair of old scuffed slippers and had taken off his poplin jacket. The evening was warm. He looked at home, Bobby thought. Oh, Mr. Brautigan. Hi. I didn't mean to startle you. You didn't. I think I did. You were 1,000 miles away, and it's Ted. Please. Okay. But Bobby didn't know if he could stick to Ted. Calling a grown-up, especially an old grown-up, by his first name went against not only his mother's teaching, but his own inclination. Was school good? You learned new things? Yeah, fine. Bobby shifted from foot to foot, swapped his new books from hand to hand. Would you sit with me a minute? Sure, but I can't for long. Stuff to do, you know. Supper to do, mostly. The leftover stew had grown quite attractive in his mind by now. Absolutely. Things to do. And tempus fugit. As Bobby sat down next to Mr. Brautigan, Ted, on the wide porch step, smelling the aroma of his Chesterfield, he thought he had never seen a man who looked as tired as this one. It couldn't be the moving in, could it? How worn out could you get when all you had to move in was 3 little suitcases and 3 carry-handle shopping bags? Bobby supposed there might be men coming later on with stuff in a truck, but he didn't really think so. It was just a room. A big one, but still just a single room with a kitchen on one side and everything else on the other. He and Sully John had gone up there and looked around after old Miss Sidley had her stroke and went to live with her daughter. Tempus fugit means time flies, Bobby said. Mom says it a lot. She also says time and tide wait for no man, and time heals all wounds. Your mother is a woman of many sayings, is she? Yeah, Bobby said, and suddenly the idea of all those sayings made him tired. Many sayings. Ben Jonson called time the old bald cheater, Ted Brautigan said, drawing deeply on his cigarette and then exhaling twin streams through his nose. And Boris Pasternak said we are time's captives, the hostages of eternity. Bobby looked at him in fascination, his empty belly temporarily forgotten. He loved the idea of time as an old, bald cheater. It was absolutely and completely right, although he couldn't have said why. And didn't that very inability to say why somehow add to the coolness? It was like a thing inside an egg, or a shadow behind pebbled glass. Who's Ben Jonson? An Englishman, dead these many years, Mr. Brautigan said, self-centered and foolish about money by all accounts, prone to flatulence as well, but what's that? Flatulence. Ted stuck his tongue between his lips and made a brief but very realistic farting sound. Bobby put his hands to his mouth and giggled into his cupped fingers. Kids think farts are funny, Ted Brautigan said, nodding. Yeah, to a man my age, though, they're just part of life's increasingly strange business. Ben Jonson said a good many wise things between farts, by the way. Not so many as Dr. Johnson, Samuel Johnson, that would be, but still a good many. And Boris? Pasternak, a Russian, Mr. Brautigan said dismissively. Of no account, I think. May I see your books? Bobby handed them over. Mr. Brautigan, Ted, he reminded himself, you're supposed to call him Ted, passed the Perry Mason, back after a cursory glance at the title. The Clifford Simak novel he held longer, at first squinting at the cover through the curls of cigarette smoke that rose past his eyes, then paging through it. He nodded as he did so. I have read this one, he said. I had a lot of time to read previous to coming here. Yeah? Bobby kindled. Is it good? One of his best, Mr. Brautigan, Ted, replied. He looked sideways at Bobby, one eye open, the other still squinted shut against the smoke. It gave him a look that was at once wise and mysterious, like a not quite trustworthy character in a detective movie. But are you sure you can read this? You can't be much more than 12. I'm 11, Bobby said. He was delighted that Ted thought he might be as old as 12. 11 today. I can read it. I won't be able to understand it all, but if it's a good story, I'll like it. Your birthday, Ted said, looking impressed. He took a final drag on his cigarette, then flicked it away. It hit the cement walk and fountained sparks. Happy birthday, dear Robert. Happy birthday to you. Thanks. Only I like Bobby a lot better. Bobby, then? Are you going out to celebrate? Nah, my mom's got to work late. Would you like to come up to my little place? I don't have much, but I know how to open a can. Also, I might have a pastry. Thanks, but Mom left me some stuff. I should eat that. I understand. And wonder of wonders, he looked as if he actually did. Ted returned Bobby's copy of Ring Around the Sun. In this book, he said, Mr. Simak postulates the idea that there are a number of worlds like ours. Not other planets, but other Earths. Parallel Earths in a kind of ring around the sun. A fascinating idea. Yeah, Bobby said. He knew about parallel worlds from other books, from the comics as well. Ted Brautigan was now looking at him in a thoughtful, speculative way. What? Bobby asked, feeling suddenly self-conscious. See something green, his mother might have said. For a moment he thought Ted wasn't going to answer. He seemed to have fallen into some deep and dazing train of thought. Then he gave himself a little shake and sat up straighter. Nothing, he said. I have a little idea. Perhaps you'd like to earn some extra money. Not that I have much, but yeah, cripes, yeah. There's this bike. He almost went on, then stopped himself. Best keep yourself to yourself, was yet another of his mom's sayings. I'd do just about anything you wanted. Ted Brautigan looked simultaneously alarmed and amused. It seemed to open a door to a different face somehow, and Bobby could see that, yeah, the old guy had once been a young guy. One with a little sass to him, maybe. That's a bad thing to tell a stranger, he said, and although we've progressed to Bobby and Ted, a good start, we're still really strangers to each other. Did either of those Johnson guys say anything about strangers? Not that I recall. But here's something on the subject from the Bible. For I am a stranger with thee, and a sojourner. Spare me, that I may recover strength before I go hence. Ted trailed off for a moment. The fun had gone out of his face, and he looked old again. Then his voice firmed, and he finished. Before I go hence, and be no more. Book of Psalms, I can't remember which one. Well, Bobby said, I wouldn't kill or rob anyone, don't worry. But I'd sure like to earn some money. Let me think, Ted said. Let me think a little. Sure. But if you've got chores or something, I'm your guy. Tell you that right now. Chores? Maybe. although that's not the word I would have chosen. Ted clasped his bony arms around his even bonier knees and gazed across the lawn at Broad Street. It was growing dark now. Bobby's favorite part of the evening had arrived. The cars that passed had their parking lights on, and from somewhere on Asher Avenue, Mrs. Sigsbee was calling for her twins to come in and get their supper. At this time of day, and at dawn, as he stood in the bathroom urinating into the bowl with sunshine falling through the little window and into his half-open eyes, Bobby felt like a dream in someone else's head. "Where'd you live before you came here, Mr. Ted?" "A place that wasn't as nice," he said. "Nowhere near as nice." "How long have you lived here, Bobby?" "Long as I can remember, since my dad died when I was 3. "And you know everyone on the street, on this block of the street anyway?" "Pretty much, yeah." "You'd know strangers, sojourners, faces of those unknown?" Bobby smiled and nodded. "I think so." He waited to see where this would lead next. It was interesting, but apparently this was as far as it went. Ted stood up, slowly and carefully. Bobby could hear little bones creak in his back when he put his hands around there and stretched, grimacing. "Come on," he said. "It's getting chilly. I'll go in with you. Your key or mine?" Bobby smiled. "You better start breaking in your own, don't you think?" Ted, it was getting easier to think of him as Ted, pulled a key ring from his pocket. The only keys on it were the one which opened the big front door and the one to his room. Both were shiny and new, the color of bandit gold. Bobby's own 2 keys were scratched and dull. How old was Ted, he wondered again? 60 at least, a 60-year-old man? With only 2 keys in his pocket? That was weird. Ted opened the front door, and they went into the big, dark foyer with its umbrella stand and its old painting of Lewis and Clark looking out across the American West. Bobby went to the door of the Garfield apartment, and Ted went to the stairs. He paused there for a moment with his hand on the banister. "The Simak book is a great story," he said. "It's not such great writing, though. Not bad, I don't mean to say that, but take it from me, there is better." Bobby waited. "There are also books full of great writing that don't have very good stories." "Read sometimes for the story, Bobby. Don't be like the book snobs who won't do that. Read sometimes for the words, the language. Don't be like the play-it-safers that won't do that. But when you find a book that has both a good story and good words, treasure that book." "Are there many of those, do you think?" Bobby asked. "More than the book snobs and play-it-safers think. Many more. Perhaps I'll give you one. A belated birthday present." "You don't have to do that." "No, but perhaps I will. And do have a happy birthday." "Thanks, it's been a great one." Then Bobby went into the apartment, heated up the stew, remembering to turn off the gas ring after the stew started to bubble, also remembering to put the pan in the sink to soak, and ate supper by himself, reading Ring Around the Sun with the TV on for company. He hardly heard Chet Huntley and David Brinkley gabbling the evening news. Ted was right about the book. It was a corker. The words seemed okay to him, too, although he supposed he didn't have a lot of experience just yet. "I'd like to write a story like this," he thought as he finally closed the book and flopped down on the couch to watch Sugarfoot. "I wonder if I ever could."